I had extremely low self-esteem and never felt little on good enough, smart enough, pretty enough.
From her earliest memories, Andrea Logan White felt invisible. As the middle child of two career-driven parents, she was hungry for affection and attention.
My father was a police officer, and my mother, started working quite often in full-time jobs, and we grew up in a very emotionally sterile environment. So there was not a lot of affection or attention.
When Andrea turned 13 years old, her parents divorced and her grandparents died.
And I really was hopeless and was diagnosed with depression at 13. I was threatening suicide because I was so desperate to just have somebody pay attention to me and to love on me.
When Andrea's cries for help were ignored, she realized that by controlling her eating habits, she could take charge of her life.
Really going into high school is when the eating disorder started because my life was a mess. So I started to control my environment. Well, if I can just do this one thing and be, strong in this area, then I'll be different. And I think that was the one thing that made me, oddly enough, feel strong.
Soon, anorexia consumed Andrea's life.
And I remember at the worst point of the eating disorder, I think I was eating 500 calories or less. So I would count every stick of gum and, everything I would put in my mouth. And even with 78 pounds, 85 pounds, 90 pounds, I would see a fat, ugly person. I was alive, but I was so dead inside and so broken, and it was just all-consuming. The obsession, the compulsion, and it just takes every part of your life away from you.
When she was 18, Andrea went to an outpatient facility for 2 weeks to get help with the anorexia. But shortly after her treatment ended, Andrea moved to Los Angeles to pursue her dream of acting. The anorexia wasn't far behind.
I was around sex and drugs and everything you can imagine and money, and it became normal to me, and that was scary. I would relapse in and out of the anorexia because that was, again, I had no support, no foundation, because I was looking at people with plastic surgery and looking what appeared to be the perfect life aesthetically.
After a couple of years in Hollywood, the competition for jobs and fear of rejection began to wear on Andrea. That's when she started working a side job as a personal trainer. Several of her clients are Christians.
I was exhausted physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, and I was tired of doing everything in my own strength. And I was at that place where my eyes were open. I was ready for it, and I just started seeing the joy and the peace that these other Christians that I were working with, and I could see the difference in their lives.
Driving home from work one day, Andrea prayed to God when she stopped at a light.
I got to rock bottom, and I just remember crying out to God in my car, and I was sobbing. Somebody had beeped their horn, and so I hesitated to even look over, and he held up a sign, and and he pointed to it, but it was the sign to a radio station. I turned the radio station on, and there was a pastor repeating the prayer that I had just cried out. God used that, and it was him repeating my words and my cry out to God, right back to him. And that was a huge, huge sign, not only, physically, but just symbolically of God saying, listen, you're here for a reason. I have a plan for you, and I am here, and I am real. And really, that's when my life made a dramatic change, and I accepted Christ as my Savior. I just remember feeling that peace and that joy, and knowing that it was real.
In 2003, Andrea married David White, a man whom she met at her church. But Andrea continued to struggle with eating disorders even after becoming a Christian and marriage. Shortly after her wedding, she slipped into bulimia.
The anorexia, I thought, okay, I'm a new creature and I'm healed. But the other part, knowing, is that we still have the emotional wounds and the soul wounds. And I think being a Christian and learning your identity, it's ongoing. For 2 years straight, my husband and I were on our knees and crying out to God, and as a believer, asking God for his mercy.
Through consistent prayer and Bible study, Andrea began to see a breakthrough.
God is so good. When he heals you and then some. God healed me of bulimia instantly, in an instant. I stopped throwing up. It was a miracle.
Doctors had told her she would never get pregnant because of the ravages of anorexia. When she became pregnant with her first son, she knew her healing was complete.
not only healed me of bulimia, but blessed me with a strong, healthy child. And so I feel like I got, double healing.
Today, Andrea has 2 healthy children and has been living free of her eating disorder for over 6 years. She works alongside her husband, David, in their business, Pure Flix Entertainment, a faith and family company.
Since I've been saved, 99% of my work has been in the Christian market. And it's just been such a blessing to do a story, to have heart in it, to also have redemption in it. He is faithful every time he sees you, whether it's anorexia or bulimia or depression. He is right there to cradle you. And I'm telling you, he will not let you down. I would say cry out to him and be relentless.